Making a quiche is super simple, and I'm gonna show you all the tips and tricks you need to make a perfect one. There are three main components to consider when making a quiche. The first is the crust. You can use homemade or store-bought. I most often use a store-bought crust. Sometimes I put it in my own shell, and sometimes I take it straight from the package. There's only a couple things to remember when it comes to the crust. First of all, you wanna be sure that it's nice and cold. So for this one, I used just the refrigerated roll-up crust, formed it into my pie plate, and then I'm gonna keep it in the fridge until I'm ready to go. Because if it's too warm when you get started, it's gonna slide down the pan and it's just not gonna be as flaky. Better yet, you can pull one straight from the freezer and you can bake straight from frozen. So no need to thaw out. This is a great time saver. And the second thing to remember when it comes to crust is to blind bake it. That means you're going to kind of par bake it ahead of time. This is gonna keep it from getting too soggy and ensure that it cooks all the way through and stays flaky. So I'm gonna show you how to blind bake first. You're gonna form it into your pie plate, shape it up how you want, then you're gonna give it some pricks with a fork. The holes are gonna allow any steam to escape and prevent those big bubbles that sometimes form. So you're going to line it with some parchment paper or foil sometimes. You can use pie weights, but I use dried beans. It's more affordable. You can reuse them over and over, but you do not want to cook with them after you bake with them. So you're just going to pour your beans straight into the parchment lined shell, and you're going to fill it up so that it takes the shape of the pie. Now this goes into the oven at 450 degrees for about 8 to 10 minutes. And here's one that I've already done. Once it's slightly cooled, you're gonna remove the parchment and scoop up all those beans. The shape has been formed. If you wanna cook the bottom just a little bit more, pop it back in for just about 2 minutes. And here's a crust that I have gone ahead and par baked fully. It's ready to be filled. Next component is the egg custard. My rule of thumb is for every egg you use, you're gonna use 1/3 to 1/2 cup of dairy. I just always have both milk and heavy cream in my fridge, so I'm doing a combination of both, but 1/2 and 1/2 will work just great. I love the addition of heavy cream because I think it just makes your filling a little extra rich and creamy versus just using milk. So for my quiche, I'm using 4 eggs and a cup of heavy cream and 3/4 cup of milk. That's just slightly under 1/2 cup of dairy per egg. If you've got some fillings that contain moisture, like if you're doing a lot of vegetables, you could go on the lower end, closer to the 1/3 cup range. And if your filling is mostly just meat and cheese, you can go on the higher end. This is also the time to add any other flavor components that you want, such as hot sauce or mustard. I'm just gonna do a little salt and pepper. What you want is a rich and creamy filling like this. What you don't want to add at this point is the cheese. To me, it just always sinks to the bottom and you can never get it fully dispersed. We'll talk about that in a second. We've got the crust and the custard. Now for the fillings. This is a great time to just empty out your fridge and get creative. Popular fillings include cheese, meat, and veggies. As far as the meats go, you want to be sure that they are cooked ahead of time. You also want to be sure if you're using something like bacon or sausage that you want it to be well drained. You don't want to add any extra moisture into your quiche because it can make the crust soggy and just make the whole thing too liquidy. So I'm just using ham, which typically comes already cooked, and I've just given it a rough chop. You don't always have to cook the veggies, but you do want to be mindful of the extra moisture if you don't cook them. The green onion is mainly for color and flavor. It's not going to give off a ton of moisture, so I can just add it straight in. When it comes to adding the cheese in, I like to add just a little bit on the bottom to kind of create a barrier between the other ingredients that might cause some moisture and the crust. Then you want to add in any of your meat and veggie fillings. You don't want to put your fillings straight into the egg mixture because once you pour it in, it never really distributes evenly. A good rule of thumb when it comes to the amounts, for a 9-inch just basic quiche, you're going to use about 1 to 2 cups of filling, so whether that's meat and veggies or a combination of both. And for cheese, about 1.5 cups is perfect. Once you've got all your fillings in there, it's time to pour your custard over the top. Final bit of information is how to cook it properly. You want to turn your oven down. After you've cooked that crust at 400 or 450 degrees, you've got to remember to turn your oven down. 325 degrees seems to be the perfect temperature for me, and you're gonna cook it anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. You don't wanna overcook the quiche or the eggs are gonna be rubbery. We still want this to be nice and creamy in the middle, so you're gonna pull it while it's just ever so slightly jiggly in the center. She's a beaut, right? Just like any pie or pan of brownies, you want it to sit so that it'll cut really pretty. My favorite way to enjoy quiche is with a side salad. This makes a complete meal for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. That is good. You really don't think about quiche being a real treat, but I'm telling you, this is indulgent. The crust is flaky and buttery. That filling is so creamy. And don't forget, you can make this ahead by freezing it either before you bake it or afterwards. Either way, it's the perfect crowd pleaser. Everyone will love it. You've got all the tips and tricks you need to make a perfect quiche, and I hope you'll give it a try. And when you do, don't forget to tag me. You've got this. Making a quiche is super simple.